The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management. It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand my ups and downs. And
good morning and welcome to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett. How are you, Gene?
I'm great. How
Good.
about you?
Doing fine.
And folks, we want to welcome you to today's show. We also want to say hello to our board op, Chris Wyatt Earp, puberty, with the fastest fingers on the buttons in the West. Well, I tell you what, this cold weather that we've been having, and then this brief warm up, we're in that period of time now where you get that little bit of warmth, and you go, "Oh, this is nice. Maybe we'll be done with it." Then it's just a tease. It's just toying with our emotions, and boom, back down again to sub-zero.
I'm guessing we have at least another 6 weeks, don't you think, of winter?
Yep. But, of course, on the 2nd, of course, is Groundhog Day.
Yeah, so we'll know for sure.
So next week we can report back as to whether or not we will have a longer winter. Well, folks, again, thanks for joining us on today's show. This is Where You Live. We are broadcasting from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios. Remember, Natural Green is a locally owned and operated lawn and landscape care company. Their mission is to use the most environmentally sensitive products available to keep your lawn, landscape looking lush and beautiful while still healthy for both people and pets. And I must say they do a great job in snow plowing as well. If you want to give them a call, you will see some great results. That number, 763-213-2410. We're also brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. Well, as we mentioned in last week's show, legislatures all around the country have started, and there is the new dance of all the new bills that are being introduced by, I suppose, well-meaning folks who want to be able to get control of this thing called an HOA. And so we've got our share of bills and stories to share with you today. So without further ado, let's begin with property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. Now, if you wish to avail yourself of special pricing and discounts you won't find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners can call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson. The number, 952-224-2663, and ask for your Where You Live with Gene and Tony special pricing. Well, our first story comes from the Colorado Springs Gazette, and it says the title of it is that HOAs are not a favorite subject of the incoming Speaker of the House. Apparently, the Democratic Speaker of the House incoming this year, his name is Mark Ferrandino, and he brings a very personal perspective on homeowner associations, and I would also want to say a very touchy one as well. Basically, he's not a fan. I think it's fair to say he hates them. And when he was asked recently in a newsroom questioning, and someone said, what do you think of HOAs? He said, don't even get me started. And here's the reason why. It appears that he has felt that he was treated to a very rude introduction to the life of HOAs. He said, he gave this story. He said, when I lived in an HOA, I thought of my HOA as being paid as part of my mortgage. Ferrandino said, our HOA fees were only $25 a month. They weren't much, so it really wasn't what I considered a lot of money. After living there about 6 months, he said that he received a notice that there was a lien on the property. He said, I didn't realize I wasn't paying my HOA assessments. Ferrandino was shocked that his HOA board would take such what he called a predatory approach to him as a new neighbor. I mean, why go to this length to have a judgment and a lien because of non-payment? He said, the president of my HOA wasn't smart enough just to walk down the street and knock on my door and ask for a check. He said, I could have just written the check for him. I'm good for it. So instead, he ended up, after paying his assessments, that were due, and some court fees and collection costs, he paid about $500.
So instead of the $75 he owed, I think you said he owed about $75 by that time.
Yes.
He ended up paying $500, and it's the HOA's fault.
Yes, and he said, so you can understand my attitude with HOAs. He said, I actively now look for areas that do not have HOAs where I want to live.
He also says he welcomes greater regulation of HOAs, and he will support pending legislation in Colorado, and he supports giving their HOA information officer more powers to investigate and enforce the HOA Homeowners Bill of Rights, and apparently to investigate complaints against boards and management. So, you know, we hear this story so often, and probably every week in the office, someone calls and says, I didn't know I was in an
That's
HOA.
right.
I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know that it wasn't part of my mortgage payment, these HOA dues. And unfortunately, haven't we not all heard the phrase, ignorance of the law is no excuse?
Yes.
Or something like that? I'm paraphrasing, yeah.
That's what it is. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. We're talking about people who can own a home. We're talking about adults old enough to sign a contract. That's right. It says that by law, if you're going to own property, you need to be an adult. You need to be sane. You need to be sober. And I'm assuming that Mr. Ferrandino is all three of those things.
Well, maybe that's a better defense. I was drunk when I signed my papers at the closing.
Yeah. Well, just to put it in perspective here, let me give another example. Everybody wants to come down on an HOA and say, well, I didn't know the HOA wasn't getting paid. I thought it was being taken care of. Let's take a look at a person's mortgage. Now, at the closing, you're responsible to let the people at closing know the information of how the home is insured, through whom, and all of that contact information. If that's not given, not communicated correctly at closing, then the mortgage company, the lender, doesn't see that there is insurance on the property, even though it is insured.
Okay.
So what do? They immediately put on their own policy, and the homeowner has to start paying it themselves. Now, if they don't pay attention to what's going on and to the bills that are coming in, they're not going to notice that they're paying more.
They may be paying for two insurance policies.
And it's not necessary. Now, at the point that the homeowner finally says, oh, wait a minute, I've got insurance, and you contact the mortgage company. They ask you to prove it, so you go through the machinations and the efforts to show them that. Then they remove it. Do they give you a credit for those months? No. They just say, look, you've got to be responsible you can't just go on autopilot after you buy a home.
Right.
And so that's what I think this gentleman did. He goes on autopilot thinking that there's nothing more he needs to do with his responsibility, and that's just plain wrong.
Yeah, it is. I can understand as well that an association like this, I'm going to take a guess here and guess that it's a single-family homeowners association, since he's only paying $25 a month. That's probably to maintain the street lights and the monument sign.
Exactly.
An association like that really doesn't have the funding to send out notices every month or to, you know what I mean? So I'm not surprised that he didn't get a knock from the president.
We need to take a break right now. When we come back, let's wrap up this story of the aggravated Speaker of the House in the state of Colorado because he didn't know he wasn't paying his HOA fees. More of Where You Live with Gene and Tony after these messages.